Hi everyone, so today I want to show you how you can make, to be honest, this is a seasonal door wreath. You could use it for spring, summer, even autumn or winter just by changing the colours around. So you will have received a box at this stage, and included in the box was a 10-inch Oasis ring. Now the ring that I would have sent out to you, we have already trimmed around the top, but it's dry. So what I want you to do is fill up a sink of water, basin of water, and then just drop it down into it. It normally only takes about 2 minutes, and if you find that the container you're using is not wide enough, you could just keep turning the ring in the bucket of water or the sink until all the foam is completely wet. So this feels quite heavy at the moment, but this is going to prolong the life of the foliage that we're going to use. The next thing that's included in your kit is a little grey bag, and that's full of some eucalyptus foliage that has already been cut up. Now we did put a little note in, and hopefully most of you has read it, and it did say to place that little bag of greenery in your fridge, just in the lower area of your fridge. That would just prolong the life of it. But listen, the weather is quite cold at the moment and it'll be absolutely fine. And if you wanted to redo this again in the future, you could use foliage from your own garden, even if it's a different version to what we're using here today. The other item that was in your box was a small bunch of dried flowers. Now again, we vary these colours. I didn't want to send everybody out the exact same colour. So probably in your Zoom class, you'll see some people have other colours. So we just have pink dried, and just to hold them all together, I just place a little wire around the end of them, which I'm just going to slide off, or you might find it probably easier to catch the beginning of it and then just unravel the wire, and that'll, now watch, they'll fall all over the place. So just lay them on the table and we'll use them in a little while. The other item was I sent out a little bunch of an artificial flower. It's a bit awkward with posting to send fresh flowers out. And again, these are obviously going to last for ages. They're kind of like a faux flower. So again, I sent some people out the white one, and I sent some people out the cerise pink one. And again, if you find maybe coming into the summer or other times of the year, you can always replace these flowers. Or again, when you're finished with the door wreath, these flowers can be reused again. They do come as a little bush, but you will find in your box I'll have them cut up into a shorter length. The reason being, there's a wire inside the stem, and some of you may struggle with cutting it. You might not have strong enough scissors. So just to kind of make life easy for you, I have cut them up already. There's normally 8 large heads and 2 small heads in the bunch when we cut them up. The next thing that's in your box is some organza ribbon. I've added in 2 of them, okay? I will show you to make a bow. Some of you might want to put a bow on. And then I'm also going to show you how to make like a hanger, for hanging on your door. So you can remove them elastic bands and you can open them out. And as I said, that's just for making a hanger so that you can hang it on your own whole door. And if you want to make a bow, I'll show you how to make a bow as well. Again, if you choose not to use the second piece, just put it up safe and you can use it in another display. And the very last item in your box is just some skinny strips of ribbon. Now you'll only need 1 of them. I just sent out 2 or 3 just so that you have them. And again, that's only if you choose to add the bow to the arrangement. You may need to use this piece of ribbon. But again, if you don't want the bow, you don't need them. So we're all organised. So we have all the greenery cut up for you, right, in your little bag. Now you will find with each piece of greenery is, and you will have to do this yourself, is we want to make sure that the end is nice and clean. Do you see the way we have this clean stem, okay? So I have mine all cleaned down, but you might find when you take your one up, there's a leaf near the end, so you may need to actually take off that leaf, So it's really important that we have nice clean stems at the bottom, and that way they'll go easier into your floral foam. So just have a quick look through the pieces of foliage there, and as I said, make sure that you have all your clean stems ready. In saying that, you can actually clean them down as we add them into the arrangement or into our door wreath. So I'm just going to put the flowers to one side. Now, if you're right-handed, you will probably find it easier to keep the greenery on your right-hand side. And obviously, if you're left-handed, put the greenery on your left-hand side. So we have our frame here. And as you can see, it's already wet and it feels quite heavy. And when you do hang it up on the door, or even today when you're working with it, as you push the foliage or the material into the ring, you're naturally going to push water out of the ring, okay? That's what's going to happen. So don't be put off, the way if you see water coming out of it and you say, oh my God, this is going to drown the place. It'll absorb any surplus water again. And again, when you hang it on the door, if you go out and hang it on the door immediately, a small bit of water will kind of like drip out of it. But if you leave it for about an hour or so, you'll find that it's well absorbed and there's no problem with the water dripping out of it. If you want to prolong the freshness of the foliage, you can take it off your whole door and you can re-water it again. Even if it's just to pour a bottle of water over it, or again a hose or a watering can, just to keep the foam nice and moist. So with each piece of foliage, some of them may be a little bit long, you know, that way, and again you can always cut them shorter, but we've tried to work it that most pieces are the same length. So I'm right-handed, so I have my foliage on my right-hand side. Looking at the circle, imagine it's a clock. So think of 3 o'clock on your clock, right? So this is 3 o'clock. And down low, near the plastic rim, I'm going to insert that piece of foliage on a slant. And directly in behind it, you know what I mean, leaving about 2 centimeters of a gap, I'm going to get another piece of foliage and also add that in on a slant. So I'm about a half 3. And then I'm going to turn the ring on the table and I'm going to take up the next piece of foliage. And again, if you want to cut it a little bit short, if you find it's long, take off any leaves at the bottom and you're going to insert that one in on a slant. And then you'll take up your next one and you'll insert that one in on a slant. And as you're working around, we've sent out a selection of large leaf eucalyptus and small leaf eucalyptus. So you'll kind of find the different varieties are nicer in the arrangement. There may be an odd piece in the bunch that's a little bit too long, you can leave it out, or a little bit too short. But when it comes to the final part where we're filling in the arrangement, you'll see yourself that's where we'll use them. So we're going along, putting our stems if they're a little bit too long, keep turning your ring and insert it on a slant. So at this stage I'm probably, you know what I mean, gone from 3 o'clock around to 6:45, but I keep turning it on the table, so I'm naturally the whole time inserting the pieces of foliage at the 3 o'clock. Now you will find the larger leaf eucalyptus fills in much faster than the lighter leaf eucalyptus. So again, that's why I've sent out a mixture. But some of you might kind of choose and would prefer maybe the smaller one. Again, it's completely up to yourself, and any of the other pieces you can use them for filling in as we go along. Now, during this Zoom class, we will ask you to hold it up to the camera ever so often, just so that we can see what you're doing, you know, that way, and see if anybody needs any help. Again, you can always put your questions, you know what I mean, in the comments and we will help you. And if you're watching this outside hours, obviously maybe some of you may choose to watch this outside the Zoom class time, you can always drop us an email. So our email address is info@flowerschoolireland.com. So just to introduce myself, I'm Janette and I'm from Case Flower School, and Deirdre is the girl that's behind the camera. And here at Case Flower School, what we run are professional floristry training courses. So we're training florists for working in flower shops, maybe eventually set up their own business, or maybe work in somebody else's flower shop. Now at this stage, I'm all the way around. So I'll just kind of hold it up there just to kind of give you an idea. And again, don't be afraid that you'll see water dripping out of it. So this is where I went all the way around the outside with our greenery inserted on a slant. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the inside of the ring. Now, it doesn't really matter if you decide to go the opposite angle. Sometimes when the people are right-handed, it's natural to go to the other side, you know that way? Or sometimes what people do is they choose to use their left hand, even though they're right-handed. So again, I'm going to start at 3 o'clock. And I'm positioning the foliage in on an angle. Now the reason I want it in on an angle is that I don't want to cover in the circle hole, you know what I mean, that's on the inside of the frame. So as you're inserting this foliage in on a slant, you may find that some of it is coming up onto the Oasis ring. You see, like so there. That's absolutely fine because that will actually help to cover the ring. I kind of want to keep this hole in the centre, and that's what gives the door wreath effect. Now, if you're doing this at home, and you find that the centre is getting covered in, or maybe you choose and you would prefer to have the centre covered in, that's absolutely fine. The great thing about this is I want you to enjoy it, you know, like keep it kind of like nice and casual, you know that way. So again, it's completely up to yourself, but I am going to try and keep the hole in the centre. The other thing I find with the centre pieces of foliage is I do find the smaller pieces work out better than the longer pieces. So you know when you were working through your pieces of greenery there, and you probably found you had a couple of small ones, you could actually keep them to one side and use them for filling in the centre, but they will also do for filling in when we come to the top of the wreath as well. Now at this stage, I'm all the way around to the inside, and I'm going to hold that up again just so that you can see it there. So there's our foliage around the inside, and yet I still have this hole in the centre. The organza ribbon I showed you earlier on, that's going to hook around it for hanging on the door, but we're not finished yet. So now we're going to continue on with the rest of the foliage. So this time, again, I start at 3 o'clock. I'm starting on the right hand side. So I'm inserting the foliage on the top of the oasis this time. But again, I'm keeping that slanted effect. So I'm placing that little piece there in on a slant. And then I'm going to work behind it with another piece on a slant. And then I'm going to work behind that again with another piece on a slant. And so on. You may need to cut some of them a little bit shorter, do you know that way? So you keep working your way around. You're inserting them into the oasis a good 1.5 to 2 centimetres. Because what you don't want is when you hang this on the door that all the stuff starts falling out of it. So make sure that you're pushing them in far enough. Now some of you may be watching or making this today, and you might decide that you would prefer to use it as a table centre, and that's absolutely fine. You know that way, if you find maybe you're in an area where it doesn't suit hanging on a door, maybe you haven't got a whole door, maybe you have one hanging up already, you can use this as a table centre. And you know the hole that we left in the middle, what you could do there is you could stand a bottle of wine, a bottle of Prosecco, something nice up in the centre of the arrangement, just to kind of give you a focal point. Another idea would be like a hurricane glass vase, and you could put like a thick candle standing in the centre as well. So I'm nearly around to where I kind of began. So at this stage now, I have a circle of foliage all around the centre of it, and again I'm going to hold it up to you. So I have the outside, I have the inside, and then you can see I have the top circle done. Now again, you can see the water dripping out, but that's absolutely fine. There's a lot of foliage gone down into that ring, and obviously as you push something into the sponge, you're going to push water out. Now look at your ring kind of on an angle. Do you see sideways? Do you see in that area there? That's the area we want to cover now. Now again, it's up to yourself. Do you want to go right-handed or left-handed? But again, we're placing the foliage in on a slant. So our task now, or what we're trying to achieve, is to cover in the floral foam as much as possible. So keep turning it around on the table and adding in pieces of foliage. But if you could just kind of keep that all the foliage is going in on a slant, you know, that way it'll cover in a lot better. And again, they can be longer pieces or shorter pieces. Don't have them too long, you know what I mean, but medium to short kind of fills in fine. So we're working our way around. Again, just getting a couple of little short ones. Just going to cut these ones up here. Make sure that the leaf at the bottom, that you have a nice clean stem. So remove the leaves at the bottom, because again, they will go easier into the foam. And once you kind of get on a roll, you'll find that you'll be absolutely flying sticking them in. So again, just to kind of point out, this is the area that you're filling in, and once all your foliage goes in on a slant, and it doesn't matter if you kind of work up high or you work down a little bit lower, it's up to you. You can't really overdo the foliage. You know, I know some of you might say you prefer a little bit less, or maybe you prefer a little more. It's completely up to you once you kind of stick it in on a slant. Now I'm all the way around, so I've kind of filled in all the general areas, but then kind of when you look at it, you might kind of say, God, I should have put another bit in there and another bit in there. So that's what we often call to the students, fill in, fill in, fill in. So anywhere that your eye is drawn to, that you kind of feel, maybe I should put another piece of foliage in, that's what I want you to do. So it's nicely packed, especially on top. A lot of people worry a lot about the size, and I know that was the area that we were on. But if you think about it, when this is actually hanging on the door, it's going to be the centre middle area is what's going to be facing you. So when your neighbours or your friends come up to knock on your hall door, that's the area that they're going to see. So pack that area out quite full. There's loads and loads of room on the Oasis. And the great thing about the eucalyptus, it's lovely skinny stems that's on it. Now for anybody that's not too sure what eucalyptus is, I always say to the students, get a leaf, fold it over in your hand, crease it, squash it, and keep folding it, you know, that way, and like nearly melt it or rub it in your fingers, and then smell your hands, and you'll get that lovely menthol smell. And if any of you have any extra pieces of the eucalyptus over when we're finished, just lay like little branches on your radiators, whether it be in your bedroom or your living room or whatever, and the scent in the house will be gorgeous. Or anybody that suffers from maybe sinuses, again, what you could do is put a little bit in under your pillow. Like, it's amazing, the scent of it, like the natural one. Or what we do at home is we tie a few branches together and we hang it out the shower head. So, you know, when you turn on the hot water, you know, when you're having a shower, the smell of that kind of menthol smell in the bathroom is just gorgeous. Talk about waking you up in the morning. So I'm just literally filling in. So at this stage is anywhere that I kind of feel I should put another little piece in, and I'm probably just going to use up the extra little bits that's on the table. There's no point in letting them go to waste. I'm not to tell you to put them on your radiator. We'll pretend, you know, that way. So again, I'll clean up here just so that you can kind of get an idea. And that's what our foliage base looks like there, to see completely filled in. And that's going to last for ages. If you keep that well watered and you hang it on your door, because your door outside is going to be really, really cold, even if it's been held or it's been stored in a porchway, you'll definitely get 4 weeks and maybe 5 weeks out of it. And especially if you keep the Oasis moist, okay? And then what will happen is it'll actually dry out. Now, eucalyptus, you either like it or you hate it when it dries out. I love it. But when it dries out, it just kind of goes a little bit wrinkly and a little bit crinkly, a bit like us when we get old as well. But like at that stage, let the Oasis dry out, let the eucalyptus dry out. And because your flowers are faux flowers, they're going to last, you know that way. And again, you will get another couple of weeks out of it. So at this stage now, I think, is we put the hanger on for hanging around the door. There's no top or bottom. But sometimes you look at it and you might say, that end looks nicer or that end doesn't look as nice, okay? A little tip for you, the end that looks the nicest, leave that at the bottom, okay? And the ends that maybe it's not as nice, use that at the top. So when I'm looking at my ring there, I just think that area there is not as nice as the rest of it. Now if you're looking at your own one and you can't decide, it doesn't really matter, okay? So I'm picking this area. So take the elastic band off your organza ribbon, and what you're going to do is you're going to bring it in through the hole. You see, in through there, right? And it's going to come around until you get the two pieces roughly the same length. Don't be too fussy because we're going to be adjusting it in a minute, right? So there's our two pieces of organza, okay, roughly the same length. And what you're going to do then is tie a knot. Now when you're tying the knot, before you pull it really, really tight, just bring some of the little foliage, because it went in on a slant. Do you see the way I'm able to move it over that organza there, right? And then I'll continue on tying the knot. Now if you forget to do that, what'll happen is when you tie the knot, you'll flatten down that part of it, and that's grand as well. I really, really don't mind. So there I have my swag, you see, with my 2 strands of ribbon, and there it is, you see, ready to hang on the door. Now the other 2 ends, don't tie them together yet. Wait till you decide, are you going to hang it on your knocker, or on your knob, on your door handle, or are you going to put a nail over the inside of your door and hook the ribbon over it, you know what I mean? And you can cut that shorter, by the way, if it's too long. So there's our door wreath, ready to hang on the door with a ribbon on it. Now down the opposite end, so that's going to be the top. So down the opposite end is where we're going to place the flowers. So have a look in your box then and you pick out your flowers. Now I have them cut for you already. So with these, when we're cutting them up, we kind of push the leaf, the artificial leaf, you see, up kind of closer to the flower. Do you know that way? So we'll do this while we're cutting them up. So there we go. I'm going along them all. That one had no leaf on it, so that's fine. This one there has very little leaf on it. So all the stems don't have a leaf on it, just to be aware. And 2 of them are a little bit smaller. There's the 2 smaller heads, just to kind of give you an idea. And there's the bigger heads. So what we have done is the 2 smaller heads, we have cut them a little bit longer. As I said, there's a wire in through them already. So when you take them out of your box, okay, you'll have 2 of them a little bit longer. So looking at the opposite end of the door wreath, down here I'm going to slide one of the flowers in this way and one of the flowers in the opposite way, nearly at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I just need to look at it when I'm doing it. So I'm just making sure that the pink head is roughly around where 3 o'clock would be. And then I'm going to slide this one down into the Oasis, and I'm going to make sure that the pink head, I'm just hitting a leaf there, that the pink head is roughly around where 9 o'clock is. So I'm going to turn that around to you just so that you can see it. So there's our 2 flowers. Roughly, because some people might say that's 10 past 3 and 10 to 9. It's all only roughly, right? The other pink flowers in the bush, okay, I've cut a little bit shorter for you. I'm doing them individually, but remember yours will be cut already. So you will pick up a flower, they're all big now, and you're going to stand that in the center, okay? So this is down at 6 o'clock and it's looking up at you. So again, I'll just hold that up there that you can see it. Now if somebody is watching and they're saying, oh God, I'd love to do it in fresh flowers, you can do that as well. Most of the supermarkets will have fresh tulips, you know, that way, and you could do it in tulips or even just in carnations. So now we're working on the rest of the bush, okay? And again, they will be mostly short. So there we have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's one more. Right, so there's all our heads actually cut up. So what I'm now going to do, between the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock, and obviously the 6 o'clock, I'm just going to add a few flowers just around the bottom. And you'll see now what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it look nearly like a kind of a half moon kind of horseshoe shape. So again, sometimes when you're sticking the leaf in, just push the artificial leaf up a bit closer and then use your nice clean stem to stick it into the floral foam. I'll just turn that around so you can see it. So there's our 3 o'clock and our 9 o'clock, and I placed one head there, I placed another head there, and then I'm going to place the other head in here, right? So far I've used 4 of the big heads and 2 of the small one, and can you see that starting to come together, and we're getting our little horseshoe shape. Now again, you could leave it at that if you want to, but you still have extra heads. So again, if you kind of think, what about putting one in here just to kind of make it a little bit chunkier? What about putting another flower in there just to make it a little bit chunkier? And we have 2 more heads left over, do you know that way? So maybe on the outside, if we want to add another head in there, you can leave them out. Or again, on the opposite side. So in case anyone is short to flower, you know that way, you can see that you have absolutely plenty of them. And when you have them in, you know that way, if you kind of find yourself, maybe I should have brought one of them maybe a little bit over here, you can always just take it out, stick it back in again, and just make sure that it's well stuck into your foam, that you're not hitting the leaf. And that's what the end of our, and we're not finished, that's what the end of our arrangement is looking like. So you can see what I meant by that kind of like horseshoe crescent sort of shape. Now what will happen is, every time you keep lifting it up, and I know you may lift it up to have a look at it, you're better off like leaving it to settle on your table for about an hour or so. It allows the Oasis to shrink, okay, and like hold in the moisture as I was explaining, and then your stuff won't keep falling out. But if you do find your stuff is falling out, it's a sign you haven't stuck it in far enough. Now what we want to add now is a little bit of more texture to this arrangement, and that's where our little bunches of dried will come in. And chances are you won't use all of this dried, but we want to try and use the dried and keep to the same sort of shape. So back up here at our 6 o'clock and our 9 o'clock and our 3 o'clock, I'm just adding 2 little pieces of dried flower. Now you can go under the dried or over the dried, it doesn't make any difference. Can you see the way I put them in there? And then down at 6 o'clock, now you might need your scissors at this stage just to cut a few of them, because I cut all these the same length. So down there roughly at 6 o'clock, I'm going to add in another little spike of dried flower sticking out there. And if you went in between all the ones around the outside, so what about sticking another one in there? And again, you'll have to prod around because it's working your way in through the little leaves, you know what I mean, to get it in. And then we'll put another one in here. And if you want to use less or you want to use more, it's completely up to yourself. So nearly in between each of the pink flowers, like working around in that horseshoe shape, I'm adding in a couple of these dried flowers. And I'm working back around to our 3 o'clock and our 9 o'clock. And I just feel like if we added another one in here. And chances are what you put in on one side, you'll possibly put in on the opposite side, okay? And again with the dried, like they're dried, so they're just going to like stay dried basically in the arrangement. Your faux flowers are obviously everlasting and you have them forever. And eventually you have your eucalyptus drying out, and again that's going to last for ages. Now I'm not finished, but this is what it's looking like so far with our little bit of dried through it. So I've mostly kept the dried on the outside. If something is there loose on the table, you can just shove it back in there again. So now I want to add another little bit of dried in and out through the flowers. And because our flowers are kind of like roundy, if you kind of allow these to be a little bit longer, so you get kind of like a spiky effect and let them kind of stick up. I'm just going to turn this around to me. I'm struggling when it's away from me, you know what I mean? That I can see what I'm doing. I can kind of move the leaf apart with my finger and then I can stick it in, which is what you will be doing at home yourself. But I will turn it back around to you in a second, just so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm cutting these short, kind of like moving the leaf out of the way and then just sticking these in. Now I've sent out loads of the little dried flower to you. Like I've only used half of what I've sent out. And again, like just kind of turn it around. It's looking really well at that stage. Now if you want to add extra ones, can you see like in here? So I'm going to turn it back around to me, and again I'm going to get another couple, cut them short, and again we'll stick another one in there. And I just kind of find the contrasting shapes. Now I have sent out a lovely white faux flower as well to some of you, but this cerise will work well, you know, that way, obviously with the white flowers. But again, you can use different colour dried in case anybody wants to copy this at home themselves. Again, like using different materials. I've 1 or 2 heads left over, and I'm just kind of cutting them up, and I'm just sticking them in for the sake of sticking them in. I've 1 spare one left over, and I actually think I have enough in at this stage. So again, just so that you can see what it looks like. Now the very last thing is, if you want to make a bow, and you don't have to do this, not everybody will like a bow on their swag, right? So I did send out an extra piece of ribbon, organza, so open that out. And this is where the florist ribbon will come in as well. You see the skinny strips of florist ribbon. So the idea to make the bow is pretend it's a cold day out, and you probably don't have to pretend because it probably is a cold day out. And you're going to get your piece of organza ribbon, and you're going to wrap it around your neck like a scarf, and you're going to bring it around cuddled up underneath your neck and crossed over your chest, okay? Now, it'd be great if we could make the bow like this, but unfortunately we can't. But that's the technique for making the bow. Now what you're going to do is take it off your neck, right? And hopefully you have your cameras turned on so I can correct just what you're doing. So you're going to pretend that you're wrapping it around your neck, cuddled up underneath your neck, and the 2 strings crossed, you know what I mean, over your chest. And can you see the way my finger is kind of gripping it in there nice and tight? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the halfway at the back of the neck, the halfway mark. I'm just going to grab that and bring it in to meet the other hand. And can you see how easy it is to make the bow? Now if you want to make it bigger or smaller, you just adjust that circle that you made. Do you see if you want to make it smaller? Or again, if you want to make it a little bit larger. We can always trim the tails afterwards. So it's completely up to you what size bow you want to make. I'm happy with this size. So again, I have it crossed under my neck, you know, across your chest. I'm grabbing the back of it. I'm going to bring that down into meet there, squash it all in nice and tight, and then get one of them skinny pieces of florist ribbon. We're going to wrap that around the centre. Now this is where if there's anybody in the house to help you, I see a few of you might have little helpers, just hold them strings out to them and tell them to tie a knot, okay? If you don't have a little helper, hopefully you have a spare tire. So put it against your tummy to hold, and then you can tie the knot, okay? Pull the knot really tight, and then tie a double knot, okay? Just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. So when you have the bow made, what you can then do is open it out. So get the organza ribbon, and you see the way you can open it out nice and fluffy on that side and nice and fluffy on the other side. Now if some of you would prefer to leave it tight, that's grand as well. And then the 2 tails, I sent out the ribbon nice and long so you could decide yourself, do you want a bigger bow or a smaller bow? I kind of made mine a little bit on the smaller side. So I'm just going to trim. Now don't cut these tails, okay? But the tails of the organza, if you choose to, you can cut them a little bit shorter. I'm just cutting straight across. And that's what my bow looks like to see so far. And I still have these 2 green skinny strings. So these strings is what's going to tie it onto the wreath. And we're going to tie it on where the ribbon was, you know, for hanging it on the door. You see, up the top part of your wreath. Remember I said we picked out our not so nice part of the wreath, you know the way? So this is going to cover it. So what you're going to do is lay your bow where you want it, wrap the green string around the frame. It's kind of going in the same area where you like put the hanger on, okay? You're going to get your 2 green strings. I just have them here at the back. You can't see them. So you kind of have to believe me that I'm tying a knot. I'm tying the bow on. I'm tying a double knot to be sure. And then I'm going to cut off the extra pieces of ribbon left that's sticking down. Now be careful that you don't cut the organza ribbon. We still want the organza to hang it on the door because it looks nice. You can fix your bow around there, you know, just to kind of get a little bit more even. I actually think I could do my strings on the organza a little bit shorter. So I'm going to pretend I'm a hairdresser and give it a little trim. I think that looks nicer. So there's our bow at the top. There's our hanger for hanging it on the door. We have our faux flowers and we have our little bit of dried going through it. And as I said, if you keep this watered, the fresh foliage will last 4 to 5 weeks, no problem. After that, let the oasis dry out and it'll actually turn into a dried wreath. And obviously the flowers and the dried flowers are going to last for ages. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If anybody has any questions at all, drop us an email, info@flowerschoolireland.com. When you do make your door wreath, I'd absolutely love if you posted it on your social media pages and then tag us. So the @ Case Flower School. And if you'd like to see a couple of more of our tutorials, follow us on our social media pages: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter and YouTube. We're on absolutely everything. Just search the hashtag Case Flower School. Again, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed your class and looking forward to seeing all your amazing creations. Bye bye.